In today's office environment, ergonomics, temperature control, food services, and personal comfort are viewed as important contributors to productivity. Recent research has identified a new factor for maximizing productivity: managing the level of carbon dioxide exhaled by people working in a physical space.
We had CO2 elevations outside 410 parts per million,
Okay.
and it's increased over the last 75 years significantly. And there are numerous contributors to that, but we are also the source of contamination. And when we spend a lot of time indoors, we're contributing to that. So inside contamination could be 3 to 4 times concentrated what we have outside.
My name is Jim Connor. Welcome to Game Changers Silicon Valley. This segment of tonight's show will discuss how productivity can be enhanced by managing the collective levels of exhaled carbon dioxide in the work environment. My guests are Alina Adams, CEO and co-founder of Artvioli, and Rick Rasmussen, an angel investor and advisor to the company. Alina and Rick, welcome to the show. Alina, let me ask you to give us a conceptual overview of this issue about elevated levels of carbon dioxide and their effect on human productivity.
Thank you for having us, Jim. Carbon dioxide has been known to have adverse health effects since we had astronauts in space. That's where they realized that astronauts have headaches, and carbon dioxide has contributed to that. And there are recent studies, specifically in Harvard, that has shown that the levels that we thought were normal for human beings to exist in carbon dioxide, they're actually quite bad for us. And those levels can affect our cognitive performance, our decision making, our productivity, and more importantly, they give us headaches and makes us feel dizzy.
What solution did you come up with, or how did you address this problem?
So solution that we came up with is to create devices that would remove this excess carbon dioxide that we breathe out, because we are the source of contamination. And if you think about outside, we have plants and trees that absorb carbon dioxide and convert it into oxygen that we need to breathe. So we thought, why can't we have devices that convert carbon dioxide into oxygens in the places where we live and spend most of our time?
I did a little reading today, and it said around in today's quote fresh air environment, carbon dioxide is about 450 parts per million in a volume-wise in a whatever a container of air. Is that correct?
In the more recent, we had CO2 elevations outside 410 parts per million,
Okay.
and it's increased over the last 75 years significantly. And there are numerous contributors to that, but we are also the source of contamination. And when we spend a lot of time indoors, we're contributing to that. So inside contamination could be 3 to 4 times concentrated what we have outside, and those are the levels that we're not accustomed to live in.
Essentially, what you're saying is that we're cross-contaminating each other with our exhaled carbon dioxide. Is that correct?
Yes, because we're rebreathing the same air in the room. So we're producing the carbon dioxide, and the only way to remove it is actually get outside or bring the fresh air from the outside.
Very good. Rick.
Yes.
I've known you for a number of years. It's great to see you. You're a very well-known guy here in Silicon Valley. What is your role with Artvioli?
I am an advisor. So it's, companies have a number of different, the CEO has a number of different structures around them. You start with a board of directors, typically consisting of investors. Overall, they're your boss. You have employees, they work for you. But, a CEO often stands alone trying to make decisions, may not have necessarily always the experience or pedigree necessary to understand exactly what's going on in the world. So I think the smart CEOs end up with a board of advisors. A board of advisors is a trusted group that's brought in by the CEO to help out with matters of daily importance and strategic importance to the company.
What is the ideal configuration of a board of advisors? Is it all domain people, or is it finance people, or is it people that help them raise money?
There's no ideal configuration. It's a function of what the requirements are for the CEO. But often you'll have people that are domain experts. So in the case of generation of oxygen in a confined environment, you'll have people that have worked in that field and know it in depth. maybe college professors, but don't have the time necessarily to join the company, but they're advising the company.
Okay.
I'm not that. So I'm a business advisor. So I come in and I've been through the process of helping companies start up, raise funds, and grow over time. I've been through 3 IPOs myself, and so help Alina and the rest of the people in the company on various aspects relating to basically day-to-day running of the company.
So let's go back to your company, though. I want to get at least the story out a little bit about the algae, right? Because you use algae, correct?
Yes.
You create a panel. So tell us a little bit about that.
Outside, we have plants and trees that convert carbon dioxide into oxygen, but it's actually algae and microscopic photosynthetic type of bacteria that absorb majority of carbon dioxide that we have in the atmosphere. So, and those algae that live in the oceans. And the idea was, if we bring this type of microscopic algae into devices that can control the environment and simulate the environment that they live in and flourish, that we can optimize the efficiency of carbon dioxide absorption and oxygen production. So this concept was created based on the technology that we learned while working at Stanford. My co-founder and I, we met working at Stanford Microfluidics Foundry, and after we left Stanford, we developed this technology. We made custom microfluidic devices for harvesting and sort of cultivating algae in these photobioreactors and devices.
So I have to ask now, I have the image of a panel, maybe 4x6 panel, and it's got something on it, algae, right? If I walk up and touch it, do I get algae in my hand? How does this work?
So we have what we call closed sustained photobioreactor. So it's a system that's an outside closed. So it doesn't get direct contact with the outside world. So it's completely sealed, but inside we're able to control it. So the core technology allows this microscopic algae to flourish. And from the customer perspective, you just look at the TV or picture or the artwork on the wall, and you don't actually see what's happening in the inside.
So now you're a believer in this technology. Have you seen it work?
Yes, absolutely.
And what was the effect?
Well, so the biggest effect is that if you don't have air inside when you're coming in, or when you have changes of the airflow. For example, if we're sitting in this room, when we go outside, you will feel, oh, I have fresh air. Or the same thing, if you're going from the fresh air environment into the room where you have high CO2 concentrations, you see the difference in CO2 concentrations indoors.
So Rick, I understand you got the product. You got a kind of a prototype. Is that correct?
So we developed multiple prototypes,
okay.
And now we need to take these units into manufacturable state.
Okay, and you're raising money for that.
Absolutely.
Is that where you come in and you're going to help them raise money or get the company positioned correctly so an investor can make a rational determination?
Yeah, all the above. So he's putting together initial materials. I have a chance to take a look at that with another set of eyes and take a look at it from an investor standpoint, make modifications, make sure that an investor would understand the value. And then as she starts the process of going off and speaking to actual investors in meetings, we go through lists, we take a look, we identify who might be proper targets, and then off we go.
Okay, so we had a conversation last week and you told me you had actually turned down several term sheets from corporate investors. That's a pretty gutsy move for a person in your situation. And you don't have to go into all the names and everything else, but did you ever doubt that decision?
Absolutely.
You did doubt it?
Yes.
And today do you doubt it?
Well, there's always in the startup life, there's decisions that you have to make on every step, and you have to evaluate decisions from the current state point to long-term perspective. And there's sometimes it seems like in the short-term run it will be a good deal. From the long-term perspective, there might not be a good deal. And what happened in our situation that we had multiple offers that would significantly benefit in the short-term stand, but in the long-term it would not be as great of a deal.
Were you part of the advisor role at that time?
Yes, and what happened is you get some term sheets and you take a look at the front end of the term sheet and what the valuation looks like. That might be appealing, but a little bit further down, there's issues relating to control, other things with follow-on investors and so on that may not be as attractive. And so in the long run, yeah.
Is it fair to say Rick's support of that position helped you finalize that decision?
Rick is one of the first people that I typically go to if I have a tough decision to make, and I don't I don't go into commitments lightly, and having someone strategic on your board will significantly affect the long-term position of your business. And for us, we didn't want to go somewhere that would significantly limit our operational effectiveness of the business.
And what did your board say about this decision?
The board supported me.
That's very good. So today now, you're close to a product release and you're doing a larger fundraise, correct?
Yes.
And so how has that been? I use the word absolutely demoralizing with somebody, but I want to get from your impression of what's life like for a woman CEO going out, hitting the streets, got an advisor next to her talking about, who's been through the ropes a couple times. What's this experience like?
Well, for anyone who went through fundraising, they'll probably tell you you get beat up a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just the matter of strategic positioning of you need to do a lot of homework and due diligence on your end, understanding who are your investors, who are your potential investors, who would you want to work with in the long run. But in general, there's no substitute to work, whatever female CEO or anyone else trying to fundraise. There's certain things that you need to have in place in order for financing to make sense. And you just have to do the work, and you have to get up and do it.
How do you qualify? I mean, do you restrict who you don't waste time talking to, or do you shotgun it?
She's got a really good filter.
Yeah.
She doesn't need me to tell her.
Really?
That. Yeah, she sorts through that pretty quickly. I come into the picture when there's actually something to talk about.
And what's your filter like?
You have to understand that if you have someone, an investor coming in your company, that you have to work with that person until you exit. So when you have someone who can especially influence the decision making, you have to understand that you should be able to work with that person. And of course, everyone has their own weaknesses and nobody's perfect. But at the end of the day, if there's some people who make certain judgments that might not be in support of the company, then it's kind of no-brainer. You don't want to have that person on your board. So there's absolutely a lot of due diligence going into understanding the funds and structure, and the funds also incentives for a company, because a lot of times what we see, funds want to have quick exits. And since we're not in the business for a quick exit, we need someone who can understand all the complexities of the business and be with us for a long run.
I've been waiting to ask this question. How do you tell an investor who's interested that you're not interested? Gently, without damaging the reputation or the long-term relationship.
It's quite delicate, and most importantly, I typically try to separate people from business-making decisions, so the people from problems. And if it is a specific partner that I've been working on, especially closely, and if somebody potentially gave us a term sheet, then we just have to understand why it's not me personally giving this decision, but the decision on behalf of the company and separate economic entity and the benefits of the entity, that I have to say that this is just not a good deal for us.
So you're saying that as the CEO of the company, representing the company's long-term interests, that it's not a good fit. Is that correct?
Yes, so I try to remove myself as a person that I like or don't like someone. It's more of a, does this make sense for the company? And if it doesn't, then I just present this, you know what, it's just doesn't make sense for us. And that way you can still have a good relationship and potentially, have some future communication with that investor. In fact, I have some investors that we turned out the deals, but I sent some of the startup companies as a potential deal flow to them. So we're still in a good relationship.
Very insightful, very good. Do you have anything to add to that qualification process for doing due diligence on investors? A lot of people are afraid of it, frankly, as I understand it, and they don't do it.
Yeah, well, just to add to her point, a lot of what the due diligence that gets done is terms in the term sheet. So if there's an onerous term that's there, that's the discussion point. And if the investor is not going to move off that point, then the deal dies. The relationship is still there, it's still strong.
What would be an onerous term that you would find unacceptable?
Oh, just being very aggressive on the back end, just
see.
The liquidation on the exit side, just wasn't. Certainly for any future investors along the way, it would have really preempted anybody else's interest, because they're sitting there looking at a company that they couldn't benefit from.
Yeah, I understand that. Very good. Well, excellent. And let's go into a little bit about your personal story. You've got a great story. You came here from Ukraine, correct?
Yes. When I moved to the United States, my first job was at Stanford, and that's where I met my co-founder. And we worked on this microfluidic technology at Stanford. And then after I left Stanford, I co-founded a software development company. And then since then, I had a couple other ventures and the nonprofit organization. And then for some reason, my sort of like technical background also wanted to get back to the roots. And I saw the opportunity for this technology, microfluidic technology, to use in indoor air purification space. And so that kind of brought me where we are today.
And how long has the company been in existence?
We officially incorporated in September 2015, but we've developed some prototypes prior to that as well.
Okay. So, Rick, you're the partner at Concordia Ventures, correct? And how broad is your charter in that role?
So there's two of us that are involved in that venture. We do investments, but for the most part, it is an advisory firm. So we help incoming delegations that are looking to make connections to Silicon Valley. It may be municipalities, economic development agencies, things along those lines.
Let's go ahead and give the audience a way to contact you if they'd like to follow up about Art Violi and the LJ panels.
You can reach us going to our website, artvioli.com, and you can also contact me personally at alina@artvioli.com.
Very good. And Rick, your contact?
Sure, you just use rick@concordiaventures.com.
Okay. Hey, great seeing you. Really enjoy. And wonderful story from you. I really enjoyed it. I think you are on to something. I think it's an interesting story, and I wish you every success going forward and executing on your plan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
This is Jim Connor. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Game Changers Silicon Valley. Each week, we'll address an area of innovation that may emerge as a game changer of tomorrow. You can follow us by clicking on this Game Changers icon or subscribe to the show at gamechangers.tv. We look forward to your continued interest and participation in upcoming shows.